Waska, my old friend. How are you?
What do you mean old? I'm not old. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience? Just give the audience a little bit of your backstory so that we can dive right in.
Okay, I'm not sure which story you want to hear, but okay. Well, I'll just speak about how you and I know each other. So, my birth name is Perry Wayne Finkelstein. I go by Waska, which is a spiritual name I was given in 2015 in the Shishindi or the Apache tradition. Full name is Waska Waboose, which has a very rich meaning. I'm not going to go into that this moment. Maybe we'll discuss that later. You could always go on illuminatedwarrior.com and meaning is on there, but I go by Waska, which is my higher vibrational self. And you and I met many moons ago with your son, also Mac, that you came to Long Island. I was facilitating a program called The Way of the Illuminated Warrior men's group, which was still happening. And we met in person back then. This is before COVID. And this is when I was living on Long Island. It was a 9-month program that we just got together, a group of guys, sharing space, holding space for each other, being on the land and touching the soil, touching the ground. A lot of times the things that we did revolved around being out in nature and being on the land, as it were. And that's how we met. You know, we bonded over the trials and tribulations of being a man in today's world, and used to call Mac, your son, baby Buddha, because I think he was 14 or 15 at the time. And so then he went off to school and we kind of lost the connection. And then he reached out to me and we reconnected again last year. And, the process just keeps going. We keep growing and, it's like the soil. You plant that seed and things grow, hopefully, if you nurture them, right?
Amen. And just so the audience knows, I reached out to Waska about a month and a half ago to talk to him about how to create a moral compass for oneself in 2024, because in a lot of ways we've lost that ability to protect our spirit, our soul. In other words, it's very easy to sell your soul, but once you sell it, you can't get it back. And one of the reasons I say again.
It costs a lot to get it back, yeah.
More than you got.
Somebody just pure gold, gold bar. Yes, gold bar. A couple gold bars, yeah. That means you sold out, so forget about the gold bars. Yeah.
So one of the highlights of this podcast, Soil Matters, is that we talk about just grow at the end. And you and I have talked for many moons about spiritual growth and personal growth. And so you were the perfect person that came to mind when I started to think about how do I give advice to people about morality and what you should stand for and what you should stand up against. Because let's face it, if you don't stand up against something, then you're condoning it, you're allowing it, and that's where the tricky part comes in, is because. Let's face it, all whistleblowers, anybody that stands up against somebody else, they end up being the bad guy.
Yeah, percentage-wise, sure. Well, it's interesting you're saying stand up against. I remember I don't remember what year it was, but because I've been in video production pretty much most of my life. I went to document an anti-war rally, and Ocean of Fast Wolf, who was one of my mentors, she said, you're using your energy in a deconstructive type of way. Instead of an anti-war rally, why don't we call it a peace rally? So just changing our mindset and the words and the verbiage. So instead of standing up against something, we could stand up for something, which really, in a way, it's the same thing, but it changes the whole energy of it, to a more, because me with positivity. I'm all about planting those seeds of positivity. And I beat I don't know if I could say shit you, but anyway, I beat the shit out of you, when you were in a dark space. I'm like, dude, just gratitude, positivity, just, fake it till you make it if you have to, right? Because really, that's what it's about. If we're not positive, then we're the opposite, right? Yin and yang.
You say fake it till you make it. And personally, I've been told that throughout my life, and I don't like it, because if you're faking it, that means sooner or later you're going to get caught. The truth's going to come out.
Okay, yeah. I never liked that saying, but once I saw that it actually works, so yeah, we could. And I'm talking about verbiage and also, yeah. So fake it till you make it may not be the best way to put it out there. All right, just how about we'll go with Nike. Just do it, man. Just do it.
There you go. There
Be
you go.
it, man. Be it. Live it. Don't dream it. Be it.
Do it till you drop.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the reason I asked Waska for 2 hours of his time to help diagnose what it is. Right. All right. So I think everybody knows, like, we have certain talents and gifts that we are given at birth, and it's up to us to enhance them or encourage the full genetic potential of those gifts are. And so one of the things that's pretty common in I want to say money making or survival, because let's face it, we all need money.
Absolutely.
Money is a tool. We all need it. Do we need a lot of it? That goes back to your moral compass. Like, what do you actually need? Very little. I mean, some of the most giving, loving, sharing people I've ever met in my life are freaking homeless because they gave up on the system, right? They were like, I don't want to make money. I don't want to have a job. I don't want to be subject to all of this negative things that come associated with those.
Yeah. Well, we know the system is set up that you have to have money because you have to pay your bills. And perfect example, when I was first got introduced to some Hopi elders and all, I read this book called The Hopi Survival Kit by Thomas Males, and in the book they were talking about how the elders, the traditional elders, they live in a place called Hotovia. It's the Four Corners in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, that area, Hopi reservation. And the traditional elders, they don't use money. I mean, they wake up, they pray, they do their farming, they do whatever they're doing. They're in a reverence state of mind, and they're praying. That's their life. Okay, so they don't have utilities, they don't have running water, they don't have the traditional utilities that Westerners have. So anyway, long story short, the U.S. government, the local municipalities said, well, you have to have electricity. They said, we don't want electricity. It goes against our beliefs. Anyway, they forced them to do that just because, even though they said they wouldn't use it, they still was a minimum that they had to pay, So look at that as an example, a group of people who don't even use money were forced by the U.S. government, to have to pay for something they didn't want, they didn't even use. Unfortunately, we all need it, as Ocean would call the greenbacks,
And so what are you willing to trade for those? Right? There's your moral compass right there. It's like, and let me ask you a question, Waska, and I think that this is really going to suss out the next point is, how does stress and pressure affect your moral compass?
Well, more like Moy Freestyle was just saying, like the system basically controls it. It's inherently looked as bad money, but money is just an energy that we use. And then, as we're talking about, as you said, we need it. We need to pay for the basics of life. Most of us anyway. So how does it affect the moral compass? If I like to look at it as energy, and you were saying, how much do we need? At one point, there was a survey done, and this is years ago, across the United States, that $75,000 was like the amount that you could live a really comfortable life. You didn't need more than that. I'm sure it's probably doubled now, just because it's so out of balance how expensive food is, how expensive fuel is, how expensive, getting the food transported to the store. Everything is more expensive now. So I don't know what that number being is, but the purpose of that study was saying, okay, at that time anyway, it was $75,000. To have more money than that didn't make your life any better. You could buy more things, and you had more headaches because you had to repair things and you had to sustain, all the stuff that you had. So, that's one aspect to it. I like money because I get stuff with it, and I live a pretty comfortable life. I don't need a lot of stuff. So what was your question again, bro?
I love about you, brother.
What?
So the question is, and this again is like, well, you have a choice to get more money, but what cost? And so how does stress and pressure, whether it's to get more or to keep up with, affect your moral compass?
Yeah.
It's a hard one, dude.
It is a hard one. It is a hard one. And I do believe what I'm going to say to be true, because I've told my kids this, and I would never BS them, because obviously I want them to, and did want them and still want them to, have the best and highest experience in life that they could have. So I always said, hey, find something that you really like doing, that you enjoy. So it's not going to feel like work, at least not most of the time. And you'll figure out a way to make money at it. Easier said than done. Okay. Because my oldest son, he's into chemistry, and he makes a good living doing that. But if he had his druthers, he would be, on his skateboard and selling Pokemon cards, which actually he's doing both of those anyway. But that's how he'd be making a living, So it's easier said than done. But I do believe if our intention is good and pure, and not to sound too esoteric, but we're doing something that is of service to others, there's a way to make enough for what we need, which begs the question, like, how much and what do we need, which is what you're asking also, but I think it's mindset. I don't think you have to sell your soul, to make money, depending upon what you're doing, of course. So what are you doing? What are you doing to make money? How do you feel about what you're doing to make money? Do you feel like you have integrity? Do you feel like you're being of service? Do you feel like, this is contributing in any way, shape, or form, or the opposite? Do you feel like you're selling yourself out? Do you feel like you're doing negative, to other people or the environment? So I think that's, those are questions that I like to look at. Like, how do you feel about what you're doing to make your living?
And that's probably the answer I was looking for.
What do you mean, probably the answer? That was the answer you were looking for, man.
Well, there's more to it. There's a bigger
more to it.
There's always more to it, right? So, but bottom line is, I mean, and you know this from our work together, was that after that horrible divorce, and I decided to swear off possession, I realized that I wanted to do something that filled my heart and soul, not my pocketbook, right? And you saw the struggles that I went through, and I'm the only reason I'm still here today is because I was blessed by so many gifts along the way. Like, dude, you've heard the stories. I was $150,000 in credit card debt at 29.99 interest rate. Nobody fucking gets out of that trap.
No.
Nobody. And it wasn't once, it was 3 fucking times. So, it was perhaps the faith that I had in what I was doing. Perhaps it was the universe saying, keep going, trust the process. And if you don't fail and you don't quit, then we will make sure you get rewarded. Maybe not, like beneficial reward, but at least enough to wipe your credit cards out and get back to zero. And I've told you, Waska, like, I get so excited when I owe nobody nothing. That's like heaven.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. But you did change your mindset also, if I remember correctly, because there's nothing wrong with having both. There's nothing wrong. You could fill your spiritual coffers and you could also fill your pockets. Why not? So, the work you're doing is very admirable, because it is for the environment. It is for people. It is for, organic way of life. And, and that is being in service to the environment and to people. So, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, why not fill my pockets a little bit with this also? Not being greedy, but like you're spending money and you're doing research and you're building something, right? So why not, it's the law of reciprocity. There has to be a give and take. So if you're giving all the time and you're not receiving, so we'll say give and receive, then it doesn't, close that loop, that sacred hoop that we talk about in Native American spirituality. There has to be reciprocity, and there has to be, a full circle. Like, you can't always just be giving. You need to receive. And likewise, if you're always receiving, the reciprocity is, hey, pass it forward, play it forward, give. So.
Yeah. And those are extremely wise words. And I guess the point I want to drive home is that you can just give, and that eventually it will come back if you have the faith, the morals, the standards, the drive to keep going, even though everything is stacked against you. So
that's a mindset also. Like I understand what you're saying. So we could look at it like, everything's stacked against us, from the government to I mean, without being conspiracy theories, you could say that, but I really, and me with the positivity, like people say, oh, why is this happening to me instead of why is, this is happening for me, and honestly, man, and this, when you change your mindset, you're not putting out all that negative bullshit like, oh man, this sucks. And like, why me? And like, it just, it brings you down. It brings the vibration of your being down. Like when it's like, oh, this sucks and this is bullshit. And like, why me? The law of attraction is, and it's more than just like, oh, well, please, creator, God, whoever, universe, bring me stuff, bring me, you have to be proactive also, but it also entails, that mindset of like, hey, things are good and things will come to me. And I'm putting this out there and I'm doing things to make that happen. Rather than being like, oh, this sucks, man. I'm never gonna get anything. I'm never gonna get any money. I'm not gonna pay then you won't, I've seen that, and I, for myself and others, and I believe that to be true. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
100%. You're going into victim mode, and that's only going to bring you a downward spiral. As soon as you go, woe is me, or why is it happening to me? You missed the whole fucking lesson. We're not here to just live in joyous happiness. We're here to learn, to grow. And again, that's what I love about this podcast is you can talk about growing plants, growing soil, growing spiritually. It's wide open because it's just about growth.
It's all about
yeah, right. The power within. And I think that's the problem is that people don't understand they have the power within. And again, it's like, all right, well, I want to encourage you, a younger person. I have quite a few proteges and people that I mentor, and it's always goes back to, hey, look, you're working with me because I'm talking to you about soil and health and plant health and the the health of the consumer of all of those things.
Yeah.
Where is your head at? Where are you mentally as well? Because I can talk to you all I want, but if you're not hearing, and I mean deeply hearing, getting it all through you, then I'm not doing you any service. And remember, we had those conversations during COVID when I was once again living underwater, tremendously deep underwater. No future. I had Pauline, who was dying of cancer. I had Poe. I was a month out of fucking homelessness. And you called me that day, and I was like, he goes, what are you doing in all this madness? And I'm like, I don't know, just staying positive. And we laughed. We laughed our fucking asses off.
Yeah.
And it was the best medicine that I could have gotten at that point in time because I was in such a dark place. Not mentally, just physically. All the darkness was around me. It was like, how the fuck am I going to get out of this one? I got a cancer patient that needs $3,000-$4,000 a month to pay for her medicine that's not covered by insurances. I've got Poe that needs food, and we're gonna lose our house, and I'm gonna have to travel back across the country with no money and no credit cards, to get back home to move in with my sister. I mean, that's not a pretty friggin' scenario to look through. But again, it was the positivity. It was that laugh that was like, okay, hey, could be worse, right? It could be fucking worse. And literally within probably 2 weeks, maybe a month max, I called you back and said, dude, I just landed this incredible.
I remember. Yeah.
Well, they just gave me a fucking blank check and said, just do it. And we don't care what it costs.
Yeah.
I mean, how the fuck does that happen, right? It was the
You manifested it because you stayed positive and you put it out there and you were willing to accept. I remember all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that I really want to, explore and talk about today, because you know what they say, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? Well, we say shit like that, but we don't live it. We don't think it. We don't feel it. And that goes back to that like moral compass. Like, all right, so I'm in a dark place. Do I start doing dark things? Do I start stealing, robbing, lying, cheating, doing whatever I have to do to survive? Or do I say, this is a lesson, and there's something that's good that's going to come out of it if I can get through it and not break.
Absolutely.
And not sell pieces of my soul.
Well,
right?
once again, that's mindset. So if you remember all the things we did, with the Warriors, man, it was challenges upon challenges, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it was, just to push ourselves and raise that awareness, like what we are capable of. Mac and I think Jake, both terrified of heights when we were doing the ropes course, being up really, really high. I mean, they were up there, they were doing their thing. And it was like, I was like so proud of them. And Mac, and I think Jake, shared this also, years later. It's like, because part of the, takeaway from that was like, okay, you just did this. You just did something. You pushed yourself that you said, no, can't do it. Not going to do it. Petrified of it. And then you bring that into your life when you need to draw upon that, like, hey, you know what? I can do whatever the hell I set my mind to. And I remember, I believe both of them said, hey, you know what? I remember when I was way up there, like looking down, petrified, but like I did it, So other challenges were easier knowing that I could push myself and stand, in that space of like, I got this. And, and it works. It definitely works because it's mindset and it's intention. And you were saying before, like, yes, darkest before the dawn and things will change. I write this where on my wrist, so it's an impermanent tattoo. Well, it's not a tattoo. It's a Sharpie, actually. This backwards stuff. It's anicca. Anyway, it's a Sanskrit word, Buddhist philosophy, anicca. Anicca means impermanence, literally means impermanence. So I think I'm very clever because I put an impermanent like tattoo as pretty cool tattoo, but seriously, it's and I put it on there just to remind myself because this past 2 years, like some health challenges, financial, whatever the challenge was, I'm like, you know what, anicca, this too shall pass. It's impermanent, it's temporary, and of course, the dark lifted and the light came out, because it always does. There's always sunshine after rain. There's always light. Light always wins, because if light didn't always win, we wouldn't be here in this state that we're in right now. We have choice, and we could choose. Like somebody, one of your listeners posted a little comment before, like gratitude is the secret matrix code, which I believe that too. We've spoken about that many times. Also, gratitude's the best attitude, man. When you're grateful for things and you put that out there, your whole body's lighter, man. And if you don't believe that, then I invite your listeners to try it, man. Just try it. Be grateful. Spend one day in gratitude, whatever's going on, because there's always something to be grateful for. If you're breathing, if you're above the dirt, as they say, there's something to be grateful for. And see how you feel. Really, just check it out and see how you feel. Be grateful, and watch how again the fog lifts, man. It works. Definitely works.
That was Pauline's practice. Was every morning to get up with her cup of coffee and say gratefulness prayers. So not only hold space to reflect, but also to reflect on all of the gifts that you were given. And I kept on with that tradition. And you taught me about putting my hands over my food and accepting that food into me gratefully. And I do the same practice, to this day about that. And so I think those are really good qualities. And I think, or things that you should keep in mind, or practices that you should start to employ if you really want to drive a better understanding of your moral compass. And one of the greatest things I learned about fear, right? Fear is like a ocean that's miles wide. And what you don't understand is if you step into the ocean, you will quickly realize it's only this deep. And therefore you can just keep walking.
Until it drops off like this.
Right. just like you said, it's like when you take that first step off the fucking rung to take another step on this wire hanging up in the fucking trees, that first step is the hardest in the world.
Yeah,
right?
1,000-mile journey begins with the first footstep. It's the hardest one. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. But once you took that step, the next one becomes easier, and the next one becomes easier, and before you know it, you've conquered that fear because you realized there was nothing to fear other than fear itself. You put that fear in your head, so now you just got to learn to overcome it. And there's easy ways to do it. You don't have to skydive or jump off a cliff or any of these things. They can be a lot smaller and easier to deal with than that radical. Now, I appreciate radical. Believe me, I true too had a fear of height that came over me. I used to be a rock climber. I had no fear whatsoever up on a mountain. I trusted my ropes and everything else until the one day I zippered a line. And again, I don't know how I survived. The only thing that held me was a rusty old piton at the beginning of the climb. So you had to climb up, clip your beaner into this rusty old piton, and then you could start to traverse. Yeah. Well, on a traverse, you're going horizontally, not straight up. So on a traverse, you're putting all this line out to get to the next chimney to go up. And so at the end of that traverse, my hands were shaking, my legs were shaking. I was super fucking tired. So I set up a couple pieces of opposing pro. Pro is the little nuts and bolts that you put in the crack to support yourself, like a piton. And then I went to sit back and kind of just give myself a chance to calm down before I had to do the chimney. Well, the pro that I set didn't hold. So as I fell back, those pulled out. Then the next one pulled out. The next one pulled out. So I did this giant fucking pendulum, right?
Scary.
And yeah, you talk about, like, I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. That is a thing, dude. That is a freaking thing. I swear to God, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I came to rest upside down, pressed in a wedge in this cave. And I remember like tumbling and looking up and seeing these rocks coming at me and just like tucking my head in so it didn't whack me. And that's how I managed to get past that outcrop and into the cave, where once I hit the cave, I got wedged up in the top of it and I was okay. But then when I went back to climb, and I knew it, I go, look, I got to get back on my horse. I got to go back up and get my carabiner off that piton, or I'm never going to climb again. I'm going to be too scared.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I climbed up there and I got as I pulled my carabiner out, the piton came with it. And that's when the fear of heights began in my life. Now, I learned to deal with it, not to the point where it paralyzes me or freaks me out. I'm just not comfortable around it anymore.
Sure.
And blessed be that I had the opportunity to parachute later on in my life. Now, you don't go by yourself the first time. You have to go tandem with an instructor. And so I was talking to Roger, who was an uncle or a mentor of mine, about my fear, and he's like, "No, don't worry about it. Let's go parachuting. Let's do this, man. Let's get this by the
balls. Let's go have a perfectly good plane. Sure, why not?"
Right? And I'm like, "All right, if you got the balls to jump out of the plane, motherfucker, I'll come with you." Right? And that was pretty much the only reason I
go first. I'll meet you on the ground. Yeah. Not me, man.
So lo and behold, he goes, right? And then I'm sitting in the plane. I'm looking out, and I'm like, "Oh, this is fucking Candyland." The ground, you can't see it. You're seeing this beautiful like landscape, and the water, and all these beautiful little clouds below you. And so when you get to that certain level, the fear is almost gone, because it's not like your brain can wrap its head around the fact that you're so high up that it doesn't look like playland anymore. Right.
Well, if you look at the acronym, for fear, like false evidence appearing as reality. So if you look at that as a mindset, and I was thinking, you were talking about rock climbing. I've only done it one time out in Golden, Colorado, with my buddy Doug, which actually I'm going out there next week to do some skiing. So he said, "Hey, you want to try rock climbing?" I'm like, sure, why not? So we went to this. I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was challenging. So I didn't have any gear. I borrowed his buddy's shoes. You cramp your feet into these tiny little shoes, and Doug's going up there. He's like, if you can't do it, I'm like, dude, you doing it? Yep. You do it, I'm going to do it, So I remember getting up there and my fingers, cause you got to work into that. And I was exhausted, but I'm like, fuck it, man. He did it. I'm doing it. I wound up doing it. Right. I'm descending down. And as I'm going down, his friend's holding the rope and he's down there. I'm like, okay, why are these two guys wearing helmets? And I don't even have a fucking helmet on. And I get down there. I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, we've got to give you the helmet. So interesting. So, and then I went up again, with a helmet, but interesting enough. So false evidence is appearing as reality, right? I think it was last year, the year before, Doug took off skiing because rock climbing, pendulum smashed his knee on a rock and destroyed his knee. He's okay now. Like if I would have known that story before I went out there rock climbing, that he pendulum and smashed his knee, I think I would have had some fear. And I think I would have made sure like, hey, dude, give me a helmet, but because I didn't have that false evidence, that my perception of, okay, I got to be afraid about this because I might pendulum. And so I think it's a lot of, once again, our mindset, like what seeds are you planting in that soil of our brains, and how are we like nurturing our thoughts, like, do I need to be fearful of something or, sometimes there's good reasons to be fearful. I mean, in the olden days, if you weren't fearful, you don't get that, cortisol and adrenaline go on the saber-toothed tiger or the bear or whoever is going to rip your ass apart. So, sometimes it's necessary, not anywhere near as much as we need today, because we are in that fight or freeze mode so often. And, our bodies are so filled with cortisol so much of the time, it totally screws up our systems. We don't know when to just chill and relax and just be, we don't have to be on guard all the time, so that's a whole nother reason to practice, positivity and gratitude and just chillaxing, and not being so stressed and worrying about shit all the time. Somebody also wrote something in the comments before, like worry. It's like I'm paraphrasing, like a double-edged sword. It hits you twice, it hurts you twice, which is true. Worry never paid a bill. It never healed anybody. Worry does absolutely nothing other than stress you out and cause angst,
Or repercussions because you were worried about something.
Like
you might even will it into happening.
Worrying about something hurts twice. Taking a cup, yeah. We've talked about that too. That in reality, if you're constantly worried about something and you are happy, you're making that a reality to something. You're asking the universe to give it to you. Yeah, self-fulfilling. Yeah, and you're not in the present moment, because when you're in the present moment, you're not worried. You're here right now. Right now, I mean, yes, okay. If the saber-toothed tiger is right here and gonna rip your face off, okay, then you might be a little bit worried. But for the most part, when you're in the present moment, it's pretty good.
And I think it's trusting. And trust is the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Trusting that the universe is going to reimburse me that money so that I can zero myself again. Not have money in my bank, just zero. Right? That takes a lot of courage to trust. And I don't know how many people I know that have been like, well, I've always wanted to do this. But I can't because I can't pay my bills. I can't because I'm not going to be able to support myself. I'm not going to be able to do the things that I want to do. And it's like, well, there you go.
Mindset. It's a choice. So one of your listeners just wrote, Patrick, he's like, I'm working on not worrying so much in 2024. All perception. 2024, what's going on now? Yeah, we could say it's a clusterfuck. I mean, really. I mean, but it's also, and this is pun intended here, it's a microcosm. I like that because that works with the whole soil matters thing. It's a microcosm of how we're living our lives, right? But seriously, so if we are worried, yes, 2024, it's a shit show. We could look at it as a shit show, okay? Or we could say, hey, this shit is getting so freaking off the charts, crazy ass shit, that it's got to rebalance itself, But if we keep that mindset, like it's a shit show and it's just going to keep getting worse, yeah, it might keep getting worse. So if you remember back 2015, 2016, whatever it was, you're like, Waska, when are things going to get better? When are these challenges going to stop? When is it going to get easier? I'm like, Okay, and I led you on for a little while just so you stick with it. I'm like, the reality is, dude, when you're under the soil, then maybe it'll stop. This is life, man. I mean, Buddhist philosophy is life is suffering, and that's not necessarily a negative thing, but really, we crave things and we try to avoid things, and we're not liberated because we're clinging to shit and we want stuff, and when we want to repel things, we suffer. So the only way to liberate ourselves from suffering is to be in the present moment and not, to a degree, not give a shit, man. Not be so worried about stuff, not be so attached to the outcome of things, not be attached to anything. I know it's easier said than done, but really, if we're really not, so concerned about what's going to happen, I'm attached to this outcome, or I have to have something, it's the clinging and the craving, and the aversions, that really cause these suffering. So if we could move ourselves into a headspace of everything's cool, man, everything's chill. And I know it sounds esoteric, but when you do that, you'll see it makes it a lot easier. Then the gratitude comes in, and the ease of flow is there, man. It's present. So again, Ocean Fast Wolf used to say, don't take my word for it, man. Give it a whirl, try it. And I wanted to backtrack a little bit. You were talking about, the food blessing. So Oshana, taught us this. So it's a mudra. A mudra is just a way of, using your hands to create energy and all. So this was the mudra. Interesting enough, I'll tell the Spock story, live long and prosper in a minute. But so the mudra is, bringing the energy through your hands, and the prayer, the intention is to help and to heal. Okay, so you would move your hands over the food 3 times and say, to help and to heal, to help and to heal, to help and to heal. Everything's intentional. 3 is the number of transformation, transmutation, and magic in the Shishinди or the Apache tradition. So we would do that over our food. It's like harmonizing the food. And the intention is giving gratitude to everything, to the soil, to the seeds, to the farmers, to the drivers who got that food to the market, to every part of the process of being grateful for hey, I've got this food in front of me right now on my plate, and you know what, if the dude that was harvesting it was in a bad mood or had bad, let's forgive and let's send him love. And so it's a harmonization of the whole process. So this is on your plate now. And even if there was, we'll say, negative energy in it, you've just harmonized it to fulfill, with nutrients, with whatever you need, in a positive way. So that's what the, to help and to heal and the mudra is about, harmonizing your foods, which I think is, you don't have to actually do this, but it's the intention of putting that in, and offering that gratitude for the whole process. The food just didn't pop in, out of the sky. It got here, very intentionally from somebody planting seeds and harvesting and growing and cultivating and bringing it to market, selling it to you, and you purchasing it, choosing it, putting it on your table, preparing it, So, when we think about those things, hey, let's offer some gratitude, right? Bing.
Oh, man. Oh, man. And it's like Reiki, right? It's energy transfer. You're putting positive energy into that food. And let's face it, food is medicine.
Yes.
We don't need pharmaceuticals. That's all a big shit show lie. We don't need those. Those were forced upon us by the wealthy elites to control us even further.
True. But let's be clear about that. I agree with you because, Native Americans and other indigenous cultures, if you know the plants and the roots, you don't need medicine.
Right.
Like pharmaceuticals. But most of us don't know that or have resources or the opportunity to go to our local, shaman or Native American or indigenous person and say, hey, man, I have this ailment. So sometimes, unfortunately, there are pharmaceutical things that can help to cure or ease our pain when we can't get the natural stuff. I don't know if you agree with that, but I do think.
Not cure. Treat the symptoms. They'll never cure a fucking thing. They will just treat the symptoms. And I agree with you. Access has been denied.
Yeah, absolutely.
It used to be every apothecary. Yeah, every apothecary sold everything you needed. You just walked in and explained to the guy what the problem was and took a pinch from this, a little bit of that root, put it all together, made a tincture, ground it up, made a powder, and gave it to you, and off you went. And that was the way we lived for thousands of years prior to fucking Rockefeller's chemists coming up with the fact that they could turn oil into fucking medicine.
Well,
So
yeah, and look at ayahuasca, psilocybin, mushrooms. All of the things that are naturally occurring, in our forests, in our natural world, that there's absolutely scientific proof how it's helped like almost every ailment, from even alcoholism to cancer to dementia, to like the list goes on and on and on. I mean, there have been legit studies that prove that these medicines, when used in the correct way, there's no pharma drugs that can compare, but of course, powers that be don't want that stuff out because they're not making money. And the reality is that they're the biggest pharma, companies are one of the biggest lobbyists. So they're making decisions on how we live our lives and what's available and what's not. And this is not my opinion. This is fact.
mm-hmm. Amen to that fact. And so, that being said, let's kind of reel it back in a little bit. But when you start to take into consideration or put into practice some of these simple things like gratitude, respect for your food, you're starting to shift more toward a positive being. Now, let's talk about yin and yang. You can't have good without evil. You can't have light without dark. And who was that woman that we studied in Circle? The dark side of humanity, or the shadow effect?
Yeah, that was Debbie Ford. Who's not alive anymore, but yeah, right. We do shadow work, which is, I think everybody benefits from doing shadow work. But yeah, great documentary on that. Yeah, I forget the name of it, but it's if you looked it up, Debbie Ford. It's doing shadow work. Yeah.
I think it's called the shadow effect. And Ken or Lil, maybe you can check that out and post it up so that the audience can see it, because shadow work is the hardest work you will ever encounter. And it is so easy to, I don't want to use the word cheat, but just dispel it, get rid of it. Don't address it.
Well, then you're not doing the work.
Right. It's the hardest work there is. So why would you want to do it? And I think that's where a lot of people don't do that, because either they're afraid to see their dark side, or they don't like the uncomfortable feeling that you get when you're doing that dark work.
That's good. If you don't deal with your shadows, you're forever be
prisoner.
Shadowed. Yeah.
You're forever a prisoner.
True. So just to clarify, people who don't know, shadow work is like we're saying, it's looking at, you could say, the dark side, but it's not a negative thing. We all have shadows. You walk in the light, you have a shadow, So shadow work is being really, really down with yourself, of looking at the things you don't want to look at, hence the shadow, and acknowledging, hey, this is part of me. It's just a part of me, but this is part of who I am. Maybe I don't like it. Maybe I think other people are judging me for it, whatever it is, but it's the hard stuff that we say, do, think. It's our thoughts, our words, our actions that we're not proud of necessarily, or we want to change in ourselves, or it's the hard stuff to look at when you look in the mirror, hold that mirror up for yourself and say, like, I don't like this about myself. How do I, first acknowledge it and say, hey, okay, it's here, it's part of me. And then work towards really transmuting that shadow part into something you feel good about. And it's hard work. It is hard work, and that's what we did, also, if you remember, we would, hold the mirror up for your brother and say, hey, this is what I see, man. It's not a judgment. I'm here supporting you. I'm holding space for you. Can you recognize yourself in this? Because, there's a thought, which I agree with, like, if you're getting tweaked by something that somebody's saying or doing to you, you got to ask yourself, like, where is that in me? Like, why is this bothering me so much? Because, he's that or she's that. Well, I'm that too. And that's why it's bothering me so much. So that's a good indicator of where the shadow work, could, be focused. If something's tweaking you, you more than likely, would benefit from looking at it, like, where is that in me?
Oh man, dude, that was one of the most powerful lessons that you taught all of us, was the fact, if this is whatever they're doing is bothering me, that's because I'm doing it too. And a lot of narcissistic people will have a tendency to reflect that on you, and you can look at it and go, oh my God, I know you, and I know that's what you do, and you're telling me that I'm doing it because that's what bothers you. When I'm not doing it, you're just reflecting it on. And so this is something else that I think, you know, was one of the most powerful lessons that you taught me. Was, I don't know if you remember, but this was in the early days, the beginnings of COVID. So it was March, end of March 6th was when they shut the United States down. And I remember you and I talked at the end of the March, because I was like, dude, like, what the fuck? They shut the globe down?
Mm.
You know, I was just tweaking, going, I never expected anything like this crazy, where the whole world is shut down with a threat of death for everybody because of a virus.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know where the virus was coming from. We knew it came from Hunan. We didn't quite know that it was engineered and all this shit. And I remember saying to you, like, dude, you know, can you give me an exercise? Like, I want to, while I'm down, like, obviously I can't work. I'm not considered, what was it? Essential.
You are essential, brother.
Yeah, I know. Right. Thank you. Appreciate it. But I'm not considered essential, so I can't, based on authority and rules, I'm not supposed to be outside of my house because I am not necessary. And so you said to me, hey, why don't you try meditating on your oldest thought as a child, your earliest thought as a child? And I don't know if we ever talked about this after the fact, but
you shared some things that came up for you. You said it was very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically the way the exercise goes is that you need to get into a meditative and quiet state. Right? That's how you start. And then you just start going back in your memory. And don't expect to do this in 15 minutes. This is going to take hours. Like, I did 3 to 4 hours daily for at least 2 to 3 weeks before I really started to unlock the tool to the point where I could lay down, grab a thought that I had thought about in the past 2 or 3 weeks, and then focus on it. And so that thought, that memory is like a picture. It's a snapshot in time. And then if you focus on that snapshot, you can start to look at it and say, okay, I remember this, but who else was there? Oh, I remember this person was there. That person. Oh, I remember we were in Vermont staying at my cousin's house for the weekend. Oh, and then my cousin pushed me over the hill and I tumbled all the way down to the bottom of the hill and threw up because I was so dizzy and scared. And so, all right, what else was going on? Oh, my little sister wasn't there. Only my big sister was there. And only my oldest cousin, because the other ones hadn't been born yet. And so it just unlocks all of these feelings and emotions and really begins to characterize why you are the way you are. And one of the biggest lessons I learned out of that work was I now know why I hug everybody, because my dad never hugged me as a kid. And all I wanted was his love, dude. That's what a child wants, his father to love him.
Absolutely.
To show him love. And so, you know, I was brought up religious, we talk about love and how do we show love and how do we show gratitude? And it's usually done with a hug or a handshake or an embrace, something that allows two people to share space together and appreciate what the other one brings to them.
Yeah.
And so that was just like this aha moment, like, holy shit. That's why to this day, I always, like, when I meet someone, I'll shake your hand, sure, but I'd rather give you a friggin' hug, which
sure
you're not even supposed to do anymore, but I don't fucking give a shit.
Well, so that's part of the shadow work that you were doing. And then, you know, and you hit it on the head. It's about really accessing what were the feelings, you know, like you said, the feelings and emotions. And then what do you do with that? You know, not judging yourself or beating yourself up, criticizing, but it's like, okay, now what do I do with this? So mine was, I was 2 years old, around 2 years old. That's my oldest memory. And I remember it to this day vividly. And again, fear, false evidence is appearing as reality. It was the first time that my parents like abandoned me. Okay, they didn't abandon me, but that was my thought as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. Was in my grandmother's house. I could see the street light out the window still, like vividly to this day. And I'm in the crib, you know, and I'm screaming and wailing, and my grandmother's not coming in because I'm sure my parents said, "Oh, you know, just let him cry, he'll be fine." My parents are gone. They've abandoned me. You know, my sister who's 2 years older, she's gone. She's abandoned me. She's probably hanging out with grandma, having fun, having ice cream, and I'm this little baby boy, like in his big bedroom, and the night it's dark outside, and I'm abandoned. Well, that was what was going on in my head. I didn't remember that until I did that exercise and some other shadow work. That's carried through decades of my life, the feeling of abandonment, you know, like in relationships. Well, you know, she's going to leave, or it carried through until I actually looked at that and said, okay, again, it was a fear, false evidence. My parents didn't abandon me, you know, and the same thing in other relationships. I'm already telegraphing, well, she's going to leave. She's going to abandon me. Well, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But if I'm putting that out there, I'm helping to, you know, manifest this self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, she's going to leave me. She's going to abandon me. So it's a very powerful exercise. And then, you know, again, getting in tune to what those feelings are and then working with it, man, you know, again, not judging, but looking at it and you know, whatever kind of therapeutic way you want to work with it, you know, I find it to be a great tool, and obviously it's worked for you as well, you know.
And I think the other one is to literally stare yourself in the eyes in a mirror, and go beyond. Like, just don't look into your eyes.
Unless you're like tripping, man. Never look in the mirror when you're tripping. That's like a hard and fast rule. Do not do it.
I did it. I saw my face melt. I laughed like a son of a bitch.
Right. Okay, I'm just saying. I just remember that from way back. Like, don't look in the mirror. Just don't look. You know, like
You know, it's funny. I heard the same urban legend or urban horror
it's
story.
not an urban legend, man. Your face was dripping because you just don't look in the mirror. But
so I was like, fine, fuck you. I looked in the mirror. and I literally saw my face melting, and all I could do was laugh my ass off because I was in a good headspace. Now, if I had been in a bad headspace, I would have had one hell of a bad trip after that experience. So again, probably not recommended if you're taking some kind of,
I was digressing with that. Just another little tidbit of, you know, another gold bar for the.
There you go.
Audience,
but,
you know?
But bottom line is, like, if you periodically go in and stand in front of a mirror with a good headspace, and you look into your pupils and don't stop, just keep looking deeper and deeper into that pupil. Visualize you going down that tube that is the pupil to the next level, to where it is. And once you get there, you can really start to see how you may be affecting other people in a negative way or a positive way, because it goes both ways. But it's very helpful in kind of, again, what we're trying to do here, people, is to give you the tools to build your own compass, right? At the end of the day, we're here to build. Everybody's here to build a compass. We want you to build a compass, and we want you to be able to use that compass going forward, so you can bring all the positivity into your life. You can bring the abundance into your life. But if you don't have a compass and you don't know how to use it, then unfortunately, you're probably going to be lost in the dark. And these dark times, or may interesting times be present with you, like that's basically what the fuck we're going through right now. Is like craziness that is the world at this point in time, and anything can happen, right? So live your life. Live your life to the fullest. Live like I'm going to die today. So what do I want? What do I want? What do I want to get out of today? Because I may not get it tomorrow. And so these are the kinds of tools that now you can read that compass, because you can say to yourself, hey, I don't want to live in fear. I've done some shadow work. I understand the potential negative sides of me that I don't want to be predominant in the way I live my life or how I treat other people. So now we've got the places we don't want to go. Now, where do we want to go? And then so that's going to hopefully be this next hour is more toward, okay, we've done the work. We've built our compass. We now, what do we like? Right? what makes you happy? I think the greatest thing that any one human being can do that I guarantee will bring them happiness or joy is giving.
Yeah, I hope.
Helping someone, helping that little old lady try
Yeah.
to cross the street, like pick up the shit that the other customer dropped on the floor and is embarrassed and trying to deal with. Help the mother with the screaming child. Go up and just go, blah, 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 blah. And the kid goes, whoa, stop screaming, right? You can do all of these little things that cost you nothing.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you they will bring you a feeling of warmth and happiness, right? So now let's focus on all the things that we want to do that make us feel really good like that inside. Now you have a path. Now you have a direction.
Yeah, I like that, man. A little wordplay also. You were saying before, you're looking in the mirror and looking in your pupil, looking deep into the pupil. Be the pupil, be the student. You know, there's a saying, when the student is ready, the master will appear. But really, if you remember the first thing, first meeting, first round, as I called it, with the Illuminated Warrior program, we begin with Buddha mind. And Buddha mind is just that, like, just being an empty vessel. Like, yes. Do you remember Professor Mike?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, may he rest in peace. He passed, but brilliant guy. And we would have these conversations. I'm like, bro, I know you know a lot of this. You know a lot. Buddha mind, okay, and so much comes out of that. I know so much. I don't know anything. Really. But beginning as like a empty landscape, an open canvas, a hollow bone, as they say. Things could come through you if you allow that space to be filled with, I'll say spirit or guidance or divine guidance, or, we have so much like knowledge within ourselves. I think a lot of times we block that knowledge with all of monkey mind craziness that goes on in our head. So when we begin with this, as it's called, Buddha mind, emptying our minds and allowing something new, even if it's something you knew already, something new and fresh perspective to come in, and seeing things from a different viewpoint. Like, have you ever had a debate, argument, disagreement with somebody? You're so adamant, like, dude, this is what happened. I remember this. This is the way it went down, and then somebody plays a recording or shows a video and like, absolutely not the way it went down, but you would bet your whole existence on it. And you're like, wow, I was like, sure, so it's having that equanimity and just being okay with not being right, and just considering, hey, there's another perspective here. Maybe I don't remember correctly, or maybe I don't have to be right. There's that saying, would you rather be right or you would rather be happy?
Oh, so true, so true. And that, here again, this is how to use your compass, is by taking yourself out of your body, out of your view. Like, all right, Waska and I get into an argument. Well, let me put myself into his shoes and understand why he argued with me. Was he having a bad day and just needed a place to vent and puke on, or was he defending something? Did I offend him in something that I said or did? And that's where that, again, having the ability to understand how to use this compass by putting yourself in the other person's shoes will help alleviate those kinds of issues. And I love it, the bone, the empty vessel. I mean,
yeah,
we should periodically, I mean, I think that's kind of what a New Year's resolution is dump out the old you and put that empty fucking glass on the counter, and let's see how it fills up this year. Where do I go? What am I going to become? Am I growing? Am I dying? Am I evolving? And so, again, another wonderful way to begin to utilize this tool that you've created. And it's only going to get better and better and better as you move forward, because you don't care. It's not that you don't care. It's that insignificant things don't bother you anymore. Like, I don't care if we got into an argument or not. I'll get done. I'll give you a hug, because, hey, look, sure, we can agree to disagree, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to, acknowledge that I hurt you or disrespected you in some way. And so, again, that's the key to moving your needle into a direction that's going to benefit you moving forward in your life. and benefit the people that you know and love.
Yeah.
If you're a better person, you bring up everybody with you. What is this saying? A high tide raises all boats.
There we go. Shadow effect. Debbie Ford, that's what you were talking about before, the shadow effect.
Yep, that was the work that we did. That was when you opened my mind to that work, it was like, holy fuck, I didn't.
Yeah, highly recommend checking that out. Debbie Ford. Yeah, it's interesting too. In the video, I remember one part. She was talking to an audience, and somebody called her out in one of these talks she's given. Like, the woman's like, "You are such a bitch," and she's like, "Yeah, you're right, I am." She's like, "That's my authentic self, and this is what I'm putting out there." And if you watch the video or read it, I mean, it's I don't want to ruin it, but yeah, I mean, more like metaphor. So we're building a moral compass, and I'll tie it into like my long-term profession, like video photography type of stuff. So when we know our true north, it's very hard to get lost, right? So what's your true north? In video or photography, a really cool thing to do with a still camera with I think digital cameras probably have it, but way back when, film camera, it was called the bulb setting. You leave the shutter open. So we used to do a lot of camping out where there's no light pollution. If you point the camera to the North Star and you leave the aperture open, you leave it on that bulb setting until you want to get it before dawn, before the light comes out. Everything's swirling around. You get a complete circle. You'll see the stars all in a total circle, which is super, super cool, as long as you point at the North Star. Okay. So a Lakota medicine person called Black Elk said, everything in the natural world moves in spirals, moves in circles. And if you think about that, it's true. A bird's nest, the seasons, the courses of our life, our breath, my hair, everything goes in circles. Okay. If you think about it, a lot more things do. So
my hair doesn't go in circles, dude. Throwback Friday.
Throwback Friday, right? We'll have to put up a picture of my big fro. My sister had like 19 pickup sticks in my fro, and you couldn't see one of them, or other like doobies or whatever. But yeah, Black Elk said everything in the natural world moves in circles, moves in cycles, and it's true. So when you know your true north, you can, once again, you can heal or mend that sacred hoop of life by being in service, by showing gratitude. And the other thing that came to me when we were talking about that, empathy. Like, if you have empathy for someone else's perspective, you don't have to agree with them, but like, hey, I understand where this person's coming from. I don't agree with it, but I hear him, I hear her, I get it. When you have empathy, you see things from a different perspective. So I think that's another important thing to consider. Like, the empathy that goes along with again, equanimity in relationships and communication. The balance that we really need to elevate not just ourselves, but everybody elevates.
Okay, so now we probably need to put a warning label on it. And by saying that is that if you're too generous, you're too giving, you are pretty much considered weak, and you will more often than not attract abusive people because you're so generous and giving and trusting. And so you have to, again, have that moral compass, but understand that it's probably not going to protect you. And that's where it comes back into intuition, trusting your intuition, because we all have it. We've just lost it. But there's, this was something that Pauline taught me was, that first of all, I'm an empath, which I didn't really understand. And I didn't understand why, like, when certain people walk by me or get near me, I kind of get jiggy and kind of want to get out of there. And it was because my intuition was telling me that was a, energy vampire, negative person, abusive person, destructive person. I mean, I've known people in my life that literally get kicks out of fucking other people up. Like they love to fuck other people up. I mean, I've been worked for billionaires that sit there and laugh about how many people they fucked over to get there, and they're proud of it. Like they're like, yeah, man, I'm bragging about it. So
That energy, narcissistic tendencies that that's out there. So yeah, you have to protect and shield yourself. And this is something I think we've spoken about in the past. Also, you mentioned energy vampires. I mean, I think anybody could probably relate to this. If you're ever around somebody, whether it's they just don't stop talking, or they only talk about themselves, or they have to have. They don't ask anything about your life, about what your needs are, what's going on with you. It's just them. It's draining. It's like they're literally like vampires sucking the energy out of you, and they're like, okay, gotta go. Like you didn't say one word. You didn't even have to be there. They just used you, as somebody they could just suck your energy. So yeah, that's important. And there are people who have that, like you talked about the yin and the yang before. You have the light, you have the darks. There are people who have dark intentions, So working on, as you were alluding to before, working on our intuition. Like if something doesn't feel good, there's probably a reason that doesn't feel good. If somebody feels off, or this is like a natural feminine quality. At least it's always been like innately, like women have very keen intuitions. And I'm speaking generally, but like that maternal instinct, when something's occurring, there's danger, or you have to protect your offspring, your kids, that maternal instinct kicks in. That's intuition, which men have. That everybody has that, whatever your gender identification is. We all have, intuition, but it's a matter of like trusting it, working with it, honing it, and getting to really like understand it. And again, trust it. Like, okay, this is happening. I'm getting a feeling in my gut. They call the gut the second brain, because our gut really, we could talk about like biome and all. The gut is like, it's part of our compass. It tells us if your gut is off, there's a reason why it's off. There's a reason why you're feeling a certain way, because that energy's coming through and saying like, okay, warning, Will Robinson, there's danger ahead, So, these are things we could look at and add to our compass, be like, in between north, northwest, whatever it is, and have that direction finder for us as well.
And so here's how to build tuition, right? Because if you don't know how to use it, well, you got to learn the moves or practice the moves to really start to hone in on it.
Good point.
And then you can trust it. So, and I did this to myself without realizing what I was doing. I got to a certain point where I was a general contractor. I had, multiple jobs going on all the time. I was in charge. I had different crews with different needs, different positions on different job sites all over the place. And, at night, at the end of the day, I would concentrate in my office and be like, okay, this employee is going to be working on this. They're going to need these things, these supplies, these materials, these tools. All right, who's under them? What are they going to need? So it was an exercise so I could better prepare for the day. Well, I never fucking failed that I woke up in the middle of the night or woke up first thing in the morning and was like, oh, don't forget to put that in the truck. Like I'd worked on it all night long, so that I made sure that when I went out that morning, I didn't end up going to that job site and going, fuck, and having to go back to the shop or back to the supply yard and get something, because that would just screw up the rest of the day. So the best way to learn intuition is to pay attention to those feelings. Like if you wake up and you looked at a pen, for whatever reason, you looked at that pen, pick the pen up, put it in your pocket. And then when you need that pen, go, now I get it, because it's going to fucking happen to you, whether it's a screwdriver, a pen, or a car key, or you just see something out of the corner of your eye and you go, I wonder why I noticed that. Like I noticed a sign for bread or eggs or whatever. Why did I notice that? Right. And that's where these kinds of exercises are really important.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to do them. You have to say, okay, for whatever reason, I stared at that billboard. What did that billboard tell me? What was that billboard trying to tell me? Or why was my dog, jumping up on me when I was trying to leave? What
Well,
are they?
that's all awareness, bro. That's all awareness, because how many things happen in the course of a day? Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of things are occurring during the day. How much awareness is there? Like, you looked at the billboard, whatever. And many people have seen like the 444, 333, and especially 1111, wake up in the middle of the night. Like, okay, what does it mean? But it's the awareness. So it's the universe speaking to us. My dear friend Simran wrote a book called Conversations with the Universe. It's the signs and as we call them, synchronicities. And when you could connect the dots, it's like, whoa, But it's a matter of being open and practicing, like you're saying, and honing your intuition and the awareness to like look at these things and accept, like, okay, the universe is speaking to me here. Okay, like have you ever had a situation where you got a message and it saved you from anything from like grave danger to just like, maybe swerving and not hitting another car, or just even something a little bit more mundane than that. But you got a message because you acknowledged it. There was a sign. There was a sign, a message that came to you, and you acknowledged it. You went with it, and you adjusted yourself accordingly, and something beautiful happened. Have you ever had that situation?
Or you prevented something really bad from happening.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just acknowledging and then going with that feeling and that intuition. How many times have you not followed your intuition and be like,
oh God, that's why I got to that point where I started trusting it, because I was constantly chasing my fucking tail because I didn't listen. I looked at that screwdriver and I didn't pick it up. Well, now I pick that fucking screwdriver up every time, and no matter what, I needed it either that day or the next day. And
is that what you always say? Screw it, man. You always say,
screw it. Shit to the wind, right?
Yeah.
But again, here's another lesson that you taught me, and I think is another great way to prepare or to build awareness, is the animal totem cards.
Oh yeah.
Like, how often do we see like a hawk flew over me, right? Oh, it's just a hawk, whatever, or a stork, or a herring, or whatever. I saw dolphins today. I went to the ocean because I was stressed out or bummed out, and I looked out and there were some dolphins. And now when you see those things, those animals, which you don't often see, or maybe you see them all the time, now it's time to say, okay, what are they trying to tell me? And there's these certain cards. What are they called? The animal spirit cards?
Animal ally cards is Farmer, I think Jim Farmer.
I figured Rick would be right next to you.
Look them up. There's a lot of different animal ally cards, but yeah, great point. Like, so we would do that every season, or when you want to, get a little, animal loving going in there. But we would do it every solstice and every equinox. Still do it with my kids. So, like you said, okay, is the hawk flying over? Okay, what I like also is like, what direction is the hawk going in? Because the east, south, west, north, they all mean different things. Okay, hawk is about focus. Okay, so what are you thinking about in this moment when this hawk is flying to the east, which speaks about the new day, illumination, light? What are you thinking about? Maybe that's an affirmation. Okay, you know what? Maybe I should ask my boss for that promotion. So. There's some really great stories. For those of you may or may not know who Leonard Peltier is. He's been incarcerated since 1975 for a crime that U.S. government has not been able to prove. And anyway, there was a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and two of the other gentlemen, Native Americans, were found innocent, and then they retried, and he's been in jail. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but he's been unjustly in prison. For a shootout that happened, and one Native American was killed, 2 FBI agents were killed, and the two other Native Americans got caught. There were hundreds of local, federal, and state like militia that was surrounding this farm, the Jumping Bull Farm. Okay, there's no way anybody should have been able to get out of there. So the two Native American dudes got caught. Leonard Peltier took the elders and escaped because he tells his story. A bald eagle appeared in the sky and basically said to him, come this way. So they went through a drainage pipe, and you could believe it or not believe it, but the eagle in Native American cosmology is considered to be like, it flies higher than any other creature, so it's known to be closer to Creator, and it's bringing messages from Creator, and it's a high vibrational being. This bald eagle came and guided them out of this extremely dangerous situation. So the animals definitely bring us messages. The stalk. You mentioned the stalk. The stalk is about stillness. It stands on one leg and waits for its prey, or just stands there in total stillness, observing and just being in the moment until it's time to take action. So every animal has a message for us. And so we pick those cards, or it could be something that you're constantly seeing a squirrel. What's with the squirrels? Well, maybe it's time to gather. Maybe it's time to prepare. So they all have different messages, and so that's what we do. And then we, even if you don't resonate with the card that you picked or the animal that's presenting itself, I always say bring it into dream time, or be open to what these messages might mean. And more often than not, it's like, yeah, okay. So these signs and synchronicities and messages are there for us. We stay open, we use our intuition, and have that awareness. It's a beautiful thing. We are not alone, people. We are not alone. Yeah.
And I think that also rings true, that just because you drew that card and perhaps you hadn't seen that animal, that means heightened awareness. Pay attention, because you very well may see it the next day or the next week, or who knows, maybe a month from now. But when you don't see it,
just to clarify, you don't have to see it. It's the energy. It's the energy and what the ally is bringing to you. Just taking that energy in. You don't have to see. You could see it in dream time. So ego wise, this is interesting. So this is back in the 90s. So this Seminole dude, Spirit Walker, came, and he was part of like the Tai Chi school I was involved with. So that's the first actually talking stick circle I was ever involved with. So he started us with the animal ally cards, and I picked the ant. I'm like, the ant, the freaking ant. I want the eagle. I want the wolf. I want, he's like, and I was just not focused. I didn't care. I didn't want. I swear this happened like I 4 times. I'm like, dude, I picked the ant. I'm like, what is it, a whole deck card of ants? He's like, which it wasn't. He's like, there's a message there for you, bro. Just sit with it. And then I actually sat with it and I looked into it. The ant is like so cool. It can lift like 400 times its own weight. It's super powerful. It's a community-minded being. They work together. They serve. I mean, there's like endless things that the ant has positive attributes that I didn't want to see. I wanted to be the eagle boy or the wolf brother, and the ant turned out to be a great ally for me. And once I accepted that, didn't pick the ant again. I got another ally, the next time I picked. So it's acceptance, it's awareness, it's being open, really.
And again, these are all wonderful tools to help guide you with your compass and to keep your compass in tune. Let's face it, these things can get out of tune. You can get in a bad way. Something really negative happens to you, and this is when the compass is the most important, to remind you not to go down that negative path, not to get sucked into that mud, but to stay focused on your true north. And so, periodically you need to pull it out and look at it, and make sure that you're still in tune with what you set for your true north. And again, these are kinds of things that will help remind you and build the trust that you have to have in that compass or in that intuition.
Yeah.
So
it's a great point, man.
Yeah. And so next, I think we have to go to ego. We have to talk about ego, because people that allow ego to control them are very often narcissists, controlling. It's all about them. They're vampires. They're going to suck the energy out of you. So does not stop looking in the mirror. See, that's the whole point. They do stop. They never looked in the fucking mirror.
Well, right? I think they're for Narcissus, where the word comes from. Like Narcissus saw his image, reflection, and was enamored with himself, and that's the origin of narcissism. Like, oh my God, I'm like so beautiful, so handsome. I love myself. So I think that's what that person was saying.
I think I agree that that's the root of it. But at this point in time, and that's why I asked Silly to look it up in different languages, because the different languages have different interpretations of it. And I don't think many people really understand what like narcissistic personality disorder is, and how toxic it really is. Whereas it's okay to have narcissistic tendencies, because if you didn't, you would never stand up for yourself. You would never protect yourself. You would never remove yourself from a situation that could potentially be harmful. So, and this goes back to ego, which is why I wanted to, hit on ego next, was because having some ego is critical. But
ego is good. The ego kind of protects us. It also pushes us in different directions. But we have to have an ego. Ego is not a negative thing. Narcissism is another story, because there's a fine line. There. I think we all have ego, and you could say, well, we are a little bit narcissistic. Well, yes and no. Narcissistic tendencies. A narcissist suffers like greatly. Like a lot of times you wouldn't know that, because they're so happening. And like, yes, like you said, it's all about me and I'm great and look at me and look what I've done. But they're usually very, very sad, suffering people deep down with low self-esteem. And that's why they have to put themselves out in front of everybody and be the center of attention and be right and be powerful and all those things that are like elevated ego that doesn't really serve, because they're usually insecure people that need that affirmation, whether they're getting it or not. That's my understanding of it. And it's all about them.
Yeah, I agree with it 100%. I just think that perhaps people don't realize the diabolical side of that. Everything is a plan. Everything is, how do I get to here? I need to do this to this person, or get that person to do this for me. So it's a constant. It's like you're playing chess or you're playing checkers and they're playing chess. They're going to outmaneuver you 100 times over, and in the end, you're going to look like the idiot. You're going to look like the wrong person, because they have manipulated each and every step of the way. So no matter who comes back at them, they've already planted the seed. Oh, Leighton's a liar. Don't believe the thing he says. Leighton did this or Leighton did that. And so when it comes time for truth, well, this goes back to another important lesson, and that is understanding a lie repeated becomes a perceived truth.
Yeah.
A fact. But if perceived truth is just as dangerous.
Absolutely. We're seeing that, like, I'm not going to get into, opinions about certain things, but we're seeing that on the grand scale of the world now. You say something often enough, just like you're saying, well, must be true, right? And that's a perception people have. Well, he said it, or we read it, or it's on the internet. It must be true, which, I've been in television production for like 40 years now. And back in the day, you had to vet these stories. You couldn't just report stuff saying it's true. But now it's like, because of the internet and just speed of getting the information out there before some other agency gets it out there, people don't even necessarily fact check it anymore, so
necessarily.
Well, they don't fact check for the most part. So it's more entertainment than it is information, so, I think you have to do your own research and take things with a grain of salt.
I loved the Instagram memes or reels about like the height of the pandemic, when every single news anchor was saying the exact same thing, and they just start putting up, people on top of people on top of people, and they're saying all the same words over and over and over again, only to come find out that was the biggest scam ever pulled on the human population. I mean, it's fucking staggering that they pulled that off. Yeah. And that's fact. That's not lie. Those vaccines are fucking a nightmare. They're a problem. And this virus was created. It was mutated. It was nothing ever close to anything in nature. It is not a viroid from nature. It can't be.
That's good. Sorry to interrupt. It's so interesting because that's a viewpoint that many share. And then you have people, I have very close friends who've argued about this ad nauseum. Like, bullshit, dude. It's I'm like, well, and I think that's part of the compass also. We're not all going to agree on this, like you and I think of it in a certain way, and we're sure this is the deal, this is how it went down, this is the manipulation, this is the lie, this is the story. And you have other people who will, I mean, look at the country now. We are more divided, I think, than we've ever been, really. So again, back to a microcosm, I think like us as individuals, if you look at your own life, anybody that's watching the show now, like how sure are you of yourself? It was written on the halls of Delphi. It was Socrates used to party. Socrates. Know thyself. I don't personally need anybody to tell me what my beliefs are or who I should be or how I should conduct my life. And this is not being narcissistic, of course. I just for the most part, know who I am, so I don't need to be manipulated and told things that I don't necessarily vibe with. I'm going to use my gut. I'm going to use my intuition and let the chips fall where they may. Am I right all the time? No, absolutely not. But you know what? I can live with myself. I have empathy. I have respect. And, I'm not going to agree with everybody, and everybody's not going to agree with me. But I think it's really important to, like that saying, live and let live, because we're not going to all on this topic or on anything else until we could really come to a place of like, you know what, bro, this is how you believe. This is how I believe. I don't necessarily agree with you, but we're living on this planet, which is getting smaller and smaller and more polluted. Like, let's just, let's not like this and like this. Let's walk together, man. Let's walk together in peace and figure out a way to grow healthy food, to figure out a way to clean up the environment, to figure out a way where the most impoverished people have food, have education, have healthcare, because we are so out of balance, man. It's insane. And those who have like everything, they don't want to give it up. I mean, it's a fact. They call them the 1%ers. Well, what if we, and I'm not talking about a utopian, dystopian, society here. But what if there was more balance? With our goods, our services, our food, our wealth, what would that look like? I know it's a pipe dream, because those who have don't want to give it up. But what does that look like?
Well, I have often meditated on exactly that. And I think I've explained this to you, is that in the early days of doing this work, soil biology, I would see things that broke my heart every fucking day. Like, there should be so much more life in the soil, or so much more life in this stream, or in this lake or this pond, or where is all the life? And it was horribly depressing, because I know what should have been there. In other words, if this was a super healthy river, there would be minnows, there would be fry, there'd be crayfish, there'd be little turtles, there'd be algae, there'd be all these different organisms and sub-organisms and greater forms of life. I don't see deer track. I don't see coyote track. I don't see any of these things in this beautiful, pristine stream in Connecticut. And then you chase that stream and you realize, oh my God, look at all the farming around here. Oh shit, the runoff and all of the, pesticides and fertilizers. We know that's what kills these organisms. And if you kill the smallest organisms, well, it has cataclysmic effects on the higher organisms. Yeah. There's no food. There's nothing to sustain them, so they move away. So one of the things that I learned to do was I would beam myself back to 1850. Why 1850? I don't know. But I imagine myself as if this was the year 1850 and I was standing here, what would I see? And I'd visualize it. I'd be like, oh, okay, this would be all abundance, and all of this would be, this incredible, beautiful landscape. And oh my God, the people that lived here would have been like so happy and bountiful with all of these good things, because I know what it should have looked like, right? And that was the only way that I could get or transition out of depression and into like, okay, I got a nasty job. I am not going to ever see what I know I should see in any of these situations unless I work my ass off to correct them, right? So those are important tools, again, is to, visualize the potential for what that could be. And on your own words, right? Division and all this is going on right now, and it's a real fucking problem. But if you envisioned that you need that person, as much as you disagree with that person, they serve a niche in this ecosystem, this ecosphere of all these different pieces. It's like, I used to have arguments with Dr. Elaine Ingham about facultative anaerobes. She's like, oh, no, nothing anaerobic. And I'm like, Elaine, anaerobes are important. They it's part of nature. How can you say anaerobes are bad or facultative anaerobes are bad? They're all good. They all serve a certain piece of the puzzle. And if you take one of those pieces out, everything's going to collapse. So I understand the reason why you say no, because you've had to fight for your reputation. You've almost been destroyed numerous times because people did take anaerobes and put them toxic anaerobic soup on trees and killed the trees and then said, oh, compost extract and teas don't work. Look, I just killed this tree. Well, yeah, all right. So I understand why you say no, you can't do that. But you can't be like so no that you don't let people understand the importance and value that they serve as part of this. And, so that was a big awareness to me, was understanding, deep diving into biology, the critical need for these things that are toxic, poison, potentially lethal, botulism, salmonella, all these things are very important in nature.
Yeah.
Insects. We all hate insects. Insects create the fucking food. They take away plants that are unhealthy so that the deer or whoever doesn't eat it, because it's not going to be good for them to consume this. So they kill the plant, digest it, turn it back into soil, and hopefully something better comes from that spot, right?
We would go extinct without insects, right?
Say again?
We would go extinct eventually if we didn't have insects, if we didn't have have bees, if we didn't have pollinators. Yeah.
Soil constructors. I mean, soil decomposers, shredders. They're so important. And we're just really starting to accept the fact that after 70 plus years of heavy use of pesticides, we've devastated the population. There's 70% of all insects have gone extinct.
Yeah.
Right? So the clock is ticking. The Grim Reaper is coming eventually. But don't worry, the planet's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
Give it a million years. It'll be an oasis again.
It makes me think of when I lived on Long Island in suburbia, like my neighbors constantly had the little flags on their lawn, True Green or whoever was there spraying pesticides and fertilizers, non-organic fertilizers. And I'd be like, listen, dude, your dog is walking on this and then licking its paws and getting the toxins in its body. Your kid is playing on the grass and then bringing that into your house from your shoes and and they didn't like me because I'd make, with my kids, we'd pick the dandelions, which, oh my God, we had dandelions. We'd make dandelion wine, give them to our tortoises, had 2 African leopard tortoises that would roam the backyard. And, dandelions are beautiful, man. They only considered weeds because people don't like them, but they're delicious. They serve a purpose and they're actually beautiful, So turn off the TV because where are you getting, we need to fertilize and we need to pesticide our lawns. It's from marketing. It's from advertising, because you don't see a lot of organic advertisements because it's, costs more. Monetarily is a perception, but it really doesn't cost more, which you could speak to this in the long run. It costs a lot less. I remember you turned me on to how the organic, the inoculants and stuff are working. That it takes a little while, but now the roots are stronger and they're deeper and they don't need as much water. So you're saving money on watering your lawn or your garden or whatever it is, so it's a whole natural process to it that most people are not interested in. So turn off the TV, turn off your phone, stop listening to all the marketing bullshit and advertising. And again, with the compass, using your intuition, does this seem healthy? So it's all part of that, what we're talking about here, building a compass and not being manipulated by consumerism and by marketing and things that are not necessarily healthy. So.
No, and it's unfortunate that that there is no truth in advertising.
Well, that was always like the slogan, truth in advertising, which maybe no, there's never been truth in advertising. If you think back about in movies and in commercials, they used to be allowed to put subliminal things in there. So they would write like in an ice cube, because I studied media, and they would show us the advertisement. You'd see the word sex in an ice cube, okay, because subliminally you're seeing that, or. I mean, there used to actually be cocaine in Coca-Cola in the early days of. I mean, there's been manipulation and sublimation since the beginning of time, and that's what advertising really is. It's like, how can we get these consumers to buy more, to consume more, to pay more? And that's really what it is.
And I blame what's his name, Siegfried Freud, because he's the one that did the very first experiment with the hot dog at the drive-in theater. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Is that? I was thinking about Siegfried and Roy. The two guys with the tigers, but that's not what you're talking about. Yeah,
I'm talking about Freud.
Yeah, Freud. Yeah.
So Zygmunt.
Yeah, well, that's why it confused me, because Siegfried and Roy were the two dudes with the tiger actually wound up attacking him, but Sigmund Freud, is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So his experiment was to, at a drive-in theater, a couple of minutes before intermission, he would use one frame out of 100. He would have a picture of a hot dog on.
Right. Oh, okay. Or a Coca-Cola or whatever. Right.
He started with a hot dog, and
right.
Then quickly learned how easy it was to turn it to popcorn, to Coke, to whatever he wanted. By just flashing one out of every 100 pictures that were the movie that you saw, the motion, you would never see that one screen because it's going too fast. But it was enough.
Your subconscious would pick it up. Yes,
absolutely. So all of a sudden, everybody fucking came and bought the hot dogs out, and he was like, "Wow, look at the power of suggestion."
Yeah.
Right. And so then they took it to the next level, and eventually, word got out that subliminally you could make people do whatever you want.
Manipulation, yeah.
And that went into psyops in the war, or psyops in the CIA and all the shadow government shit. But it also went into mainstream advertising.
Absolutely.
Here's another horrific understanding that, and I had this conversation with the dude yesterday because he kept saying NPK. I'm like, why are you saying NPK when you know soil food web? Why are you using that term? You understand soil food web. You don't need NPK. All the NPK you need is already there. And if you really want to push your plants, well, there's manures and other things, compost that you can use to push the plant. So why are you using the word NPK? Well, all my farmers use the word NPK. And I'm like, do you know where NPK comes from? And he's like, no, where? I go, there was a German scientist. Right. There was a German scientist post-World War II that was cleaning up bomb factories and looking around, trying to figure out how they were going to continue this business model that was nobody needed bombs anymore. And this particular scientist noticed that out the back door, there was a ton of plants growing where all this chemicals were running off out of the factory and collecting in the soil. So he decided to do a study on the chemistry and the plants. And what he determined was that NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium had amazing effects on plant growth. So he did a study. He wrote up a paper. The paper was released to great fanfare. He was a rock star. Oh my God, you just saved our industry. We're all be successful now. And then he did a repeat on it because of the success, because of the fame he had gained, he wanted to make sure that he was right. So he went back and realized that his experimental design was flawed, and therefore his results were flawed. So he went back to the drawing board. Took him, I don't know, some say 6 months, some say a year and 6 months, but he eventually came back and tried to rescind the paper because he realized that, that did grow plants, but they were unhealthy. They were prone to pest attack and disease and all kinds of problems.
But it's still the go-to industry. I mean, the marketing of that's what you do 4 times a year. NPK on your lawn, right?
They killed him.
Yeah.
He tried to rescind his paper and write a new paper showing that no, there's 17, and now I think they're up to 27 essential elements that plants need to be truly healthy. But they whacked him just like they whacked diesel. Diesel engines were designed to run on vegetable oil.
And Tesla also. Okay, I want to bring it back to some positivity because so you're talking about like the single frames, 30 frames per second, put one frame in there to manipulate people. So what if we have like positive images? So that's why it really is important, like what we digest in our media and in our feeds, and our Instagram and our Facebook, whatever. So, stuff we're looking at, if it's positive, as averse to like this, it doesn't even have to be subliminal. It has an effect on us. So if Masaru Emoto, the dude who did all of the testing on frozen crystals, okay, he passed a few years ago. So those of you who don't know, he would freeze water and he would do experiments of, I'll say, positive and negativity. So he would write on a vessel of water gratitude, love, all positive things, and then he would write on another vessel of water hate, like ugly words, and he would do the same thing with music, play classical music as averse to like these hate lyrics and stuff. And with the positive images and words and vibrations, you'd have like perfectly symmetrical, beautiful crystal formations as averse to the asymmetrical, like disjointed crystals from like the hate music and all of the negativity. So, and there we go. Dr. Emoto. So we're essentially liquid crystals. So when we're babies, we could be as much as 90-something% water, and as we get older, we're less and less parts of water, but we're essentially liquid crystals. So if I say to you, dude, you're an asshole, doesn't feel very good. Or if I say to you, oh, bro, I love you, man, you're looking great, I care about you, the positivity of there, is going to enhance your being. It's going to raise your vibration and elevation as averse to the negative part. So how we speak to people, how we think, really down to our thoughts, our words, our actions really have a profound effect. I mean, if you think about something that somebody might have said to you today, yesterday, or 20 years ago that really hurt your heart, I mean, that's exactly the point I'm making is, or somebody that told you that they loved you, today, yesterday, or 20 years ago, how that feels also. So we have to be really mindful of how we use our words. And again, our thoughts also hold that vibration, so, it's a good, again, coming full circle, building that compass, like what are we taking in? What kind of media are we taking in? What kind of vibrations, what kind of sounds, are they supporting, this compass that we want to help guide us through life in a positive way? Or are they promoting, manipulation and, consumerism and things that don't really serve us, So it's a question to ask yourself, in building this compass, which direction do you want to go into?
Well, that's why I had to get all negative to pull you into positive.
There you go, brother. Well, it starts to feel icky, man. I'm like, okay, we got to get out of that muck and mire, man. Get back into the light. Yeah. So do we have any questions from any of the peeps out there?
There was one question I thought I saw.
Only one question? Come on, people.
I think what's basically happening is we've been actually answering the questions. So I've been putting them in the back and then going, oh, okay, well, we've answered that one already. So although I do have one point of contention between the eagle and another bird, it's called the condor. That actually
That's South America, yes.
Higher than the eagle. That's why I always refer to myself as a condor.
Right. Oh, we're talking about North America and South America. So very good point. Again, the two hemispheres coming together. So so we have the eagle of the north and the condor of the south. That's another beautiful prophecy that's indigenous people speak about. So yes, I was referring to like Native American cosmology in Turtle Island, as they call it, in North America. So yes, the condor, which I'll say my shaman, the gentleman I've done a lot of ceremony and ayahuasca with, Don Valerio, we call him Freddie. I remember he gifted Grandma Edna Gordon from the Seneca Nation a condor feather, and it was freaking massive, man. I mean, those birds. I mean, if you've ever seen a bald eagle or golden eagle, I mean, they are big birds. Condors, like, woof. Yeah, pretty wild stuff.
All right.
Maybe
So
we should actually go into the other thing that you're into, which is go back into my banners here. This World Harmony Unlimited. Maybe we should mention that.
Sure, you can't put a limit on World Harmony. So interesting enough, and I know we're getting time-wise, so I'll keep it fairly short. So World Harmony Unlimited started back in 2000. I was invited to a spiritual unity of tribes gathering of nations, of different Native American tribes that gathered in the Sapa, which is the heart of all that is. It's in the Black Hills, sacred Black Hills of South Dakota. And I met Chief Orville Looking Horse there, who's the 19th generation keeper of the sacred pipe. There's a whole lore, like Native American lore story about that, how they were gifted the pipe. I'm not going to go into that right now. You can look that up. There was hundreds and hundreds of people at this gathering. Gathering of Eagles, it was called. And actually, at the end, like, you can't make this stuff up. There are actually eagles circling around the encampment after 9 days. So anyway, I was invited out there. I mentioned before the book that I read, The Hopi Prophecy. That led me to meet this Hopi granddaughter. I said, hey, listen, I'll come out there. I'm in television production. I'm in broadcast TV. I'll bring a crew out there and we'll document what's going on in Hotovia and in Hopi land, where the traditional elders were forced to, pay utilities. And she's like, no, National Geographic was out here and they dishonored the elders. We don't know what happened to the footage. And then fast forwarding, like a couple months later, she's like, oh, you got to come out to the sacred Black Hills of South Dakota and document the wisdom of the elders. I'm like, what? I'm like, but I put it out there. I asked two of my buddies who were in production to come with me. And, and there was all these obstacles in our way. The flights were astronomical and they weren't paying us. I just put it out there to do this. And we had to go to Oklahoma because the flights were astronomical. We drove 12 hours to get to the Black Hills, and incredible experience, the buffaloes roaming and the gorgeous topography out there. And we get to this encampment and I'm like, all right, let's set up the gear. And like all these people are like setting up camp and they're like, what are you guys doing? This is a sacred site. You can't have video cameras here. I'm like, well, where's Desamana? They're like, who? I'm like, she had this vision, this dream. I have to come here and document the wisdom of the elders. And like, she had this vision, but she didn't bother telling the people at the encampment that she had this vision. She told me, and I go out there with a crew. But anyway, somebody showed up and like, oh, okay, no, this is cool. And it was wild, man. I had to like stand up in front of like 400 or 500 people that were at this encampment that gathered from around the world, state my intentions, like why I was there. And like, it was wild. And then we smoked the pipe, to make it all like kind of seal the deal, so to speak. And it was incredible. It changed my life. So anyway, I put together, like documentary about it and brought in Jeff Tucker, may he rest in peace, a Cherokee man who I met there. Brought him to Long Island and showed this, I think it was 84-minute documentary, which you could see on worldharmonyunlimited.com. There's the videos on there, and just shared the wisdom of that went on in this gathering of eagles. And it just changed my life. So I set up the website to just host videos of Native American, mostly Native American elders, some young people and all, because really it's timeless wisdom that the indigenous people have brought and are bringing to non-native people. The same like where my name Waska comes from, like Ocean Fastwolf, who was Apache, mostly Apache. There's prophecies. The prophecies say that Westerners or non-native people are going to help once again mend that sacred hoop of what's going on in the world. So we could all live in balance. And this is part of the prophecies of what's going on. So anyway, that's where worldharmonyunlimited.com came from, just hosting videos on there of indigenous wisdom and and elders and all, because I really feel like it's so important to keep that knowledge and that wisdom and those teachings alive. And that's kind of how the Illuminated Warrior program started off, just really sharing that wisdom that I've been blessed to, bring into my life and teach my kids and live really, So, I feel really blessed to have sat with so many beautiful Native American elders and wisdom keepers, many of which have crossed over the veil and are on the other side now, working, in spirit realm, helping to balance this craziness out. Yeah.
It's funny that Lil in the comments mentioned about her mother passing and then her finding pennies all over the house. And there's awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Pauline talked about when her mom and dad passed, she would find dimes. Or no, it was Giba. When her husband passed, she would find dimes all over the place. And again, like normal person would be like, oh, it's a dime, pick it up, put it in their pocket. But the aware person is like, okay, how did that dime get here? Why is it in this really weird place that I would never put a dime? Or if I did drop the dime, I would have picked it up. So how did it get here? And I think there's that physical connection to the other side of the veil, like you just talked about, that again is really, really important in helping us, really strengthen these kinds of positive attributes that will help us guide our moral compass in this crazy ass world where if you tell the truth, you're going to be hated. You're going to be, disrespected. You're going to be the bad person because let's face it, nobody wants to hear the truth. Truth is horrifying.
And Crazy Horse said that the truth is bulletproof.
Yes, and that's the problem. They can't find a flaw in it, right? and like whether you believe the virus was man-made or from a peregrine and a bat, that's up to you. It's cool. It's cool. But don't say that I'm bullshit, right? Because now you're disrespecting my space, my headspace. So how do I prevent me from getting angry because you disrespected my knowledge? Like I've done the research, right? I've done it. I went down. Remember when I first talked to you during that the pandemic, and we were talking about our viruses alive or dead, and you're like, "Oh, my son told me they're dead." Then we, all the textbooks. I go, Waska, fuck the textbooks, right? What is the
definition, right?
What is the definition of life? And that's the problem. That's the very problem. Like, dudes, you got to see the video of the sperm entering the egg. A couple things I want to clear up here. First of all, it was believed, science said, oh, well, the first sperm that gets there gets to get with the egg, right? No, the egg chooses the sperm. In many cases, a female dog in heat will take many lovers and choose the sperm from different dogs to mate with her eggs based on what they need. So then there's this whole video of when the sperm actually penetrates the egg and there's an explosion of light. Have you seen the videos?
Oh, I've seen it. Not recently, but I've seen videos like that. Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What was the saying? And God created light to push back the dark. Life, the light is the spark of life. There's just so much to this shit that, and again, it goes back to your moral compass. If you start to understand these kinds of truths, then it makes more sense for you to listen to your intuition, to avoid negative thoughts or negative people, to increase your muscles, your spiritual muscles, for lack of a better word, to better yourself so that you can better the others around you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should even say this, but it's always bothered me that when you're in an airplane, they always say, hey, put the oxygen mask on you first so you don't die and you can help others. Well, if they're going to die from the time I put the mask on till the time I reach over and help you, hello, that's pretty narcissistic, right? So, really think about what makes sense in all of these situations. Like, if this person next to you is the person that you love the most and they're incapable of putting the mask on them, shouldn't you put the mask on them first? Because that's what brings you so much love and joy.
Yeah, use your intuition, right? Well, I just want to throw something out there before I forget again. You were talking about this before also. You know what the Kobayashi Maru is? I think I brought this. Yeah. So Captain Kirk, man. Captain Kirk became a captain because he instituted the Kobayashi Maru. he changed the rules of the game. He changed the rules of engagement. He did not do what he was supposed to do. And that's, I taught my kids that also when they were young. I'm like, you know what, if you need to rewrite the program, rewrite the program. Like, somebody came up with this, who's to say this is the way it's got to be or always has to be or should be, you know? Be bold, brave new world out there, you know, change it up, you know? And I think that's it works a lot of times also, you know, we don't have to accept hypo.
I know, who's that? Who's that?
Hypo. Pay attention to those animals. So the beautiful, look at those eyes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's important to, once again, just bring it all full circle, you know, using our intuition, paying attention to the signs, symbols, and synchronicities, having that gratitude, having the empathy, you know, being in service, you know, all these things, you know, once again, as my mentor, Ocean of Fast Wolf, used to say, don't take my word for it. Try it. See how it feels to you. Give it a chance, you know, and stuff works, man. Look at your shadow side and get thy shit together, people. Let's elevate. Let's all bring it up. Let's bring that soil up, man.
And if you don't like the rules, find a way to change them.
Kobayashi Maru, man. Yes.
You can bend rules, but don't break them.
If you got to break, you know, well, the
whole goal behind rules is to figure out a way around them, right? They use the rules to control, right?
A lot of times, yeah.
And the law, I mean, how do you think what's happening in this day and age just happens when, if you look at the law, it can be interpreted so many different ways. So all you got to have is a better, smarter lawyer who can interpret that, or the what is it? Not prejudice, the precedents. To look at all of the precedents, all of the ways that this law has been interpreted, and then present those pieces of the puzzle that most benefit what you're looking for. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about, like you're saying, it's about, you know, being aware and positive enough that you can influence and direct or misdirect some of these things. But unless you're emotionally strong and spiritually strong, you're not going to have the audacity to try. You're going to live under fear. You're never going to take that first step and realize that the ocean that's so big in front of you and scary is only half an inch deep, and you can just walk right through it.
Oh yeah.
So, are there any final pieces that you want to polish before we kill this? Literally.
Yeah, I mean, you know, thank you, Ken. Ken's been great, just you know, facilitating this whole situation. Like, once you told me once, I'm here another time, but you're great with the follow-ups and the links and the promotional. So thank you for all the work you do behind the scenes. And Lily, also, I haven't met Lily, but yes. And Leighton, thanks for inviting me on the show. It's very awesome. It's great, man. You guys have great topics, and it's important information for, you know, obviously your viewers already know that, for people to digest, you know, and grow from. So I always say, you know, change is inevitable and growth is optional. And that's what I see from the show and what you guys are doing. So, it's, you know, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you for committing to the 2-hour block to go down this rabbit hole, for lack of better words, with me.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe 2 hours without having to go to the bathroom. It's amazing.
See?
See? Change is inevitable. Growth is optional.
There you go. Yep. There you go. And again, you know, when this concept, idea, dream came to me, you were obviously the first person that popped into my head that could have this level of conversation because of your experience with the, you know, White Feather and some of the work that you did on the documentary stuff. You have a perspective unlike anybody that lives that I know of.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. Well, you know, again, it's you know, I'm a, you know, I'm an average Joe. You know, it's awareness, man, and it's all the things we're talking about. Like, I built the compass. You know, I was, you know, I was a pretty rogue dude back in the day, you know, but like, you know, my nickname used to be Party Perry. I mean, I didn't, you know, I was very frenetic, but, you know, I did the work. I looked at the shadow side of myself, and it's over the decades, man. I mean, I've just, especially being a dad, I've chosen to raise my vibration, because honestly, that's the most important thing to me. How do my kids see me? You know, what are they going to remember, you know, after I'm gone? You know, hopefully I had a positive impact on not just them, but, you know, I really try to conduct myself. Anybody that I meet, you know, do I get peeved sometimes? Do I say stupid shit? Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I own my stuff, and I will apologize if I say stupid shit or if I offend somebody. You know, and just walking the earth with the lightest, you know, touch that I can on Mother Earth. She's been really good to me. Guy has been really good to me, and just having a positive impact on people, man. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. It's a win-win situation. So I want to thank you, brothers, for the support and for you know, for hosting this, man. Yeah, I hope.
And as always, Ken, thank you for all you do behind the scenes. Sil, thank you for the research that I often send you to look up this crazy shit. But I think it adds layers to what we're trying to, the message we're trying to get out there.
Absolutely, man.
Needs and stuff, play resources to better understand some of the things that we talk about.
Build those compasses, people.
Yeah, and I just want to make one point, guys, is, you know, and Perry has said it, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Learn from those experiences. Those are the shadows that can be created that you have to deal with. Accept the lesson that was taught and then move forward from there.
Amen.
Great way to cap it off, Ken. All right, brothers. Be well.
Peace out, guys.